With Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind right around the corner, I wanted to give you guys a video on 7 things you should know about this game, starting with kind of the basic knowledge: release date, pre-orders, price, platforms, things like that. So to start it off, this game is releasing on pretty much all modern platforms: PS5, the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, Steam, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Series X. It comes out December 10th, although depending on which one of these websites that you click on, sometimes it could say December 9th. The release schedule, release time is not out yet. It's possible it's like midnight or even like 10 p.m. depending on time zones for December 9th, but it is officially December 10th. And the price, the retail price, is $34.99. Now, the thing that they're doing that I actually think is quite cool and quite interesting, there's just a pre-order discount across the board. Doesn't matter where you get this game. If you get it before launch day, you get the game for 15% off, and you get the game for about $29.99. Next up is the idea of, well, what is this game? Well, it's mainly a side scroller. Should remind you of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Should remind you of TMNT Shredder's Revenge is kind of the most recent example. Of course, there's probably dozens of side scroller games that come out every single year, or maybe even every single month. It seems like the same basic formula when you are doing the side scroller parts as those games, right? There's a reason why they've become more popular or just repopularized themselves. You got your button combinations, you got your ultimate move when the bar reaches, the meter, things like that. However, this game does take you out of those situations, which other games have tried here and there, but this game kind of puts you on, not necessarily on rails, but more like moving forward and shooting. So you could either do this in your Zords, you can do this on motorcycle, and it kind of is used as a palate cleanser where you're dodging obstacles, destroying, it could be a boss when you're actually kind of on rails in that way. And you are still going to have to deal with the time mechanic that this game presents you, which we'll talk about later on in this video. Another thing this game will do is introduce boss battles. Now, again, more than one way. So you're going to have your kind of classic side-scroller beat-em-up boss fight. And the one kind of interesting thing they do with these boss fights is add invincible time periods to the boss. So when the boss's health bar gets kind of grayed out, they will be impervious to all of your moves. In that case, to pull away, focus in on different enemies, and just not focus on the boss. Also just dodge, things like that. But a way to kind of break things up, right? So you're not just button mashing to kind of add just a portion of the boss fight where you can't actually hurt the boss. Now, another part they're doing to boss fights, as you might imagine with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, is doing a Megazord type fight. So this kind of introduces the co-op elements of this game. How this works is you're going to be obviously co-piloting along with anybody else you're playing with, and what the game does is actually swaps you out. So it's one person controlling it at any given time. You either deal a certain amount of damage on the sword in the top of the screen, and once that sword section is filled, it'll switch to the next person. That's one way. Or anytime you're hit by the boss, you will switch to the next player. So if you're playing with 2 people, it'll go back and forth, back and forth. If you're going to 5 people, I think technically it's possible to never touch it, never actually be in the fight, because I think there's 3 sections of the sword. But again, an interesting way of handling it. You might wonder, like, how do all 5 of them control it all at once? Does one control, right leg, right arm, so on, so on? The game just does it by, okay, one person controls everything: movement, dodging, fighting, and you either deal so much damage or you get so much damage dealt to you. Actually, it's just one hit, and then you will swap off. And this kind of leads back even to a more fundamental part of this game. So it's an up to 5-player co-op game. You can play this game by yourself, but it is meant to be played with other people, and you can either do this cooperatively, like locally, on the same couch co-op, something that's very much going away, or you can do it obviously online. So up to 5 people. And what's interesting about it, obviously you have the Rangers. The Green Ranger, you might notice, is missing from, the lineup. You got black, red, blue, pink, and yellow. What you actually have to do is you have to beat the game and you'll unlock the Green Ranger. So I think that's kind of a cool little add-on that they didn't necessarily have to do, but it obviously is in there. I mentioned time mechanics. That's number 6 on my list here. So, the game is called Rita's Rewind. Now, that's mainly story-based, right? In the beginning of the game, you're fighting she's fighting seemingly 40-plus-year-old Power Rangers, and then she takes it back in time 30 years ago to when they are just high school students, right? And the majority of the game, or at least what we know of as the majority of the game, happens there. So that's the rewind part of the story narrative. But in terms of the game mechanics, there's basically going to be shards that are carried in every so often. It feels like maybe a couple times per mission. And when you see the shard in the glass, you have to focus all of your attack on it. If you take out the enemy, there could be like a mini boss situation going on. Whatever you do in the meantime doesn't really matter, because if that shard is allowed to explode, it'll rewind you and all the enemies will just come back. And so again, that's the rewind part of the actual game mechanics. You got story mechanic and you also got the game mechanic in there. And then finally, I didn't actually know this until I watched IGN's preview of this, there's actually going to be like an out of the ranger suit section. It doesn't seem the most detailed. It's mainly a time to just kind of talk to NPCs, go around. I mean, maybe there'll be some Easter eggs there as well, but there's also arcade machines, and you'll unlock them periodically throughout the game, and they're made-up games. So you'll go in, you can just play an arcade machine that will do whatever it does to kind of, again, break up the structure of the game. We know it's kind of broken into like episodes or chapters, and there's like levels per chapter. We don't know how many. We don't necessarily know how long the game is as of yet. If I do find that out, I'll make probably just a standalone video on that. So there you go. Actually, that's mainly all of what you need to know, actually, for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, which, by the way, let me tell you, hard name to say just off the tip of your tongue. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.